Says now it's time. Does anybody need to use the restroom or anything? Seriously, we're not. We don't have to
You might be able to go home on time.
get stressed out here. Okay. Committee reports. Who can give a trees? I already gave announcements. George, I shared with the council, the mayor's prodded the county commission, the chairman of the county commission, to finally send a letter. Letter came from the county attorney on SPLOST. We need to get SPLOST 2023 on the ballot, and they had not taken any steps previously except for talking individually with the cities. So now we're going to have a meeting on Monday at the county courthouse with the county commission. It's the mayor, the invitation went out to the mayors, but it's a public meeting, and I encourage you all to go. It's June 27th at 6 o'clock at the historic courthouse to discuss SPLOST. And we'll share with you the specifics on what the county proposed. And I can talk to you offline about what the mayors had talked about, sort of countering with. So I won't revisit those announcements. So, yeah, Trees Parks Recreation Board.
I have a report
You do?
for the tree parks.
Great,
I
thank
have
you.
a written report.
All right. You would make sure you use your mic.
All right. See if I can read the writing. Since we've not had a quorum for the last 2 months, we don't have a lot to share. However, our biggest accomplishment was the total completion of our tree inventory. You remember that last year, our city authors and our Oxford College intern, Gayleen Covey, completed over 50% of the inventory. This year, with a scholarship from Emory University for Gayleen, she and Mr. Budd and Ms. Clark, our state forestry representative, and the Newton County GCIS program completed all of the inventory. In addition, we'll continue to mulch and prune and plant.
Awesome. Is there, I guess, what's the current status with the invasive species removal at the park? Is that all phases been done, or they still need to make a few more passes?
I think they're still working on it, aren't they?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I have.
Yeah, no, go ahead,
Speaking out of turn.
go ahead.
I've also asked them as part of the sustainability committee report, but I've asked them to, she had some thoughts on ongoing maintenance type
Yes.
contracts, and I asked her for a proposal for
Great,
that.
great.
Also, for them to, if they were interested in approaching differently our trail sections, what they would propose, and also, an official proposal. So
Awesome.
she's supposed to be working on that.
Awesome, thank you, that's great, I appreciate that. Great to see some movement on invasive species removal, that's awesome. Planning Commission, we're gonna talk about it as an item. They are short one member,
Yes, sir.
so we'll talk about that in a minute. Are there any other items from the Planning Commission?
They did ask me to report on the fact that I guess they got all the different documents that deal with the state regulations on the Georgia Green Building Codes, or the National Green Building Codes that Georgia's adopted, and then the other national code that goes beyond the state standard. And they've kind of gone through those. We've put together a couple of synopses for them, and we also last night had Bureau Veritas, Hal Chipwood, come to the meeting and kind of give a discussion of what he felt about it. He's also going to GMA down in Savannah. He's going to talk to some folks there to get some more information. At this point, the Planning Commission seems to be, I would say, just personally, they seem to be leaning towards not recommending the green code for several reasons. I mean, one is that it's not really clear if that code is really designed for residential development as opposed to commercial development. They seem to feel that a lot of what is being done is more towards commercial development. They're concerned about the costs. And I think they're also concerned about what would happen if you're rehabilitating an existing home and how that would be separate from building a new, and whether that's reasonable and all that. But what they have asked is that perhaps the city look to find someone who's more an expert in the green code to come to a meeting with both the planning commission and the council and Bureau Veritas there as someone who might be able to, explain how, well, what they're saying is one thing, but, doing the inspections on it is another, and basically go through a process like that. So they kind of feel like, I think, a little bit stymied at this point of just really where to go, and maybe having someone come in and speak to both bodies would help move the conversation along. But at this point, they felt formally they could either recommend going further with it or recommending not pursuing it.
So I would say that the research I had done on the National Green Building Standard, if we are all looking at the same thing, is that it's specifically for residential development rather than like LEED standards, which are for larger buildings, commercial buildings,
Yeah.
public buildings.
Yeah, they read the same thing. I think their feeling is that if you buy a toilet now that meets the code, it's a low flow toilet anyway. If you're buying other appliances, then you can have high efficiency appliances. I mean, they just felt that they didn't understand how perhaps the National Green Building Code for residential just seemed to go further than what was necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can gain the points on sort of what we consider mundane, regular stuff
Right.
to get the rating, but I know that I guess with the National Green Building Standard, you also have the option to glean points from, reaching that extra little bit.
Right.
So, I mean, I suppose that we could set the bar higher so that, after they met the standard basic green things, that we would be then asking them to just do a little bit more. I don't know. I feel like personally, I'm not ready to give up on them. I wasn't part of those discussions with Planning Commission, but I would love to see us find somebody who could come and actually address.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that
wasn't
would-
ready to
what I-
give up either, but.
What I would propose is, there's a nonprofit called South Base Institute, and they developed, in fact, a housing standard called Earthcraft. A lot of houses have been built to that standard. They're very familiar with LEED standards because they're very active in the U.S. Green Building Council. And I suspect they're pretty familiar with the Green Building Code. If they're not, they would probably know who. I've got a contact, I'll work with Bill to reach out to them.
Great.
And we'll get some people who are expert in
Yeah.
that are more practitioners in green building
Sure.
codes and get them to come talk to that group. I
Yeah,
think
because if
that'd
we
be good.
do it, we want it to be meaningful.
Yeah,
We don't
we
want it
wanna-
to just be,
I know one of the main
Foster.
concerns is that we want to ensure that we are focused on quality housing being built and maintained in Oxford, and not worry so much about whether it's a 3,000 square foot house or a 1,200 square foot house, but that it is a quality built
Yeah.
home that's going to be a good quality environment. And so that was I think the thinking is that the higher standards would lead to higher quality. But yeah, did Jim?
You mentioned that they were concerned about the cost.
Yes.
Cost to whom? The city or to?
The homeowner.
Okay. Well, they always that.
Then there are also some, there are analyses on life cycle costs associated with implementing certain efficient things. And again, South Base can help with resources to talk to that point as well.
that would be nice.
Okay. Well, Bill, you and I will take that action.
Sure, great.
Awesome. So since we're kind of in the planning realm, Jim, do you want to give us a quick update on the comprehensive plan update? Just nothing formal, just, I know y'all just had there was just a meeting today on the comprehensive plan.
Basically, the public meetings have been going through what we did last time and asking for our review and comment on that. So any of you want to do that and comment on it, I think that'd be very appropriate. The next meeting will be sometime September, October, as I recall. And it will be addressing the work plan, the short-term work plan, and what we might want to do with that. Now, the steering committee is taking it upon itself to ask that each of the committees that are part of the city as standing committees provide a member to the steering committee, and so that we can try to get more focused on what these different committees are doing and include them in the work plan. So, and then when the Northeast Georgia finishes their citizen request, and we're putting out one of our own that pertains to those various committees. The Sustainability Committee will have 5, 6 questions. Trees, Parks and Recreation shall also have that. I can't talk. And so that's basically where we are. That's how we're moving.
Great, thank you.
I had one more thing for sustainability.
Yeah, okay.
The Sustainability Committee has been asked to host a great pollinator count in our meadows. We are being noticed in a countywide way, our pollinator meadows. So we will be hosting that. The Sustainability Committee, I have to get affirmatives from my other committee members, but even if I have to be out there handing out clipboards, I will be. So they'll be in August, I guess it's third week of August usually, like around the 20th, when they do the Great Pollinator Count, which is through UGA, and what they're trying to do is use citizen data, participation to build sort of data on where our pollinators are, and to look for trends and things like that. So it's really good. Obviously, like with all data, the more data points they have, the more meaningful it is. So anytime we can facilitate participation in something like that, that's good.
That's not just Georgia, that's nationwide.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's
It may be
the
handled through
focal
UGA.
point, yeah, the
Georgia
roots
focal point.
for Georgia is at UGA, so,
But
but
it's
yeah,
not just Georgia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. That's great.
so that's a nice thing.
That is awesome, thank you. Mike, you have an update for us on the downtown development authority?
I don't have anything to add from the last time. We don't meet again until next Tuesday. That's when we'll have some more information. So it'll be in July before I have any substantial information.
And correct me, trying to recall in my own brain, that we talked about the fact that where you all are with the process, you have a kind of a conceptual site plan, or at least some options that y'all discussed at your last meeting from historical concepts. Suddenly having a brain freeze on that, and so some things were discussed, but it's
Your memory is pretty good,
okay.
sir.
Okay.
They came back with some conceptual items after our walk, and we've asked for a review and some changes to that so we can see more an overlay. It's a little closer to 30,000 feet. And so we have some talking points to work from forward.
Yeah, they're planning to present a refinement of those drawings at Tuesday's meeting. I just got an email today. They're asking if they could do it online. Brian thought that was fine. He's going to be out of town anyway, and was going to join it online, so that'll be happening Tuesday.
I think it would be advisable for the DDA to plan to present to the council at our next work session some of the details of what is being discussed and planned or proposed sooner rather than later. I don't want to get too far down without kind of bringing the council into the discussion. So if you could take that back for your meeting, that we would like to get more of a formal upbrief on.
Well, we didn't
things
expand
stand.
upon with the council
Yeah.
the preliminary thing.
Yeah.
We feel that there'll be.
Since you're getting more granularity now, it'd probably be good to talk about, because the last thing I think formally was sort of still the concept plan document itself. Any other questions? Awesome. All right. Next is review of the Georgia Secure Deposit Program.
Yeah, I guess I'd asked this to be put on the agenda. I talked to Marcia about it. So we had discussed, Marcia and I, about the idea of having more than one bank with the city. And I think at one meeting here, the council had expressed some concern about basically putting all of our eggs in one basket. But you might not be aware of the fact that what these emails and the document shows that the state of Georgia has a law that allows banks to participate in this program called the Georgia Secure Deposit Program, where they guarantee the amount of money that you have in their bank through a different program than the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And we are covered by that, and they've got documentation showing that. They send us a letter every year that goes to the auditor, and they check it, and, you know, it's what I had been used to doing in my previous position. So I guess Marcia's feeling like mine too, and she can certainly speak for herself, that it might be easier just to bank with one bank, just dealing with one set of people and one set of regulations and mailings and addresses and all these kinds of things. But if the council feels we should be looking at other banks, then we can certainly pursue that. But as far as I understand, I mean, the staff seems very happy with United Bank. I guess it's very United Bank. I keep saying United Community Bank, but we got someone else. So, you know, I just wanted to put that before the council, that that is a program you might not be aware of. So in terms of insuring our deposits, I mean, that's not a concern. And I guess just from an ease of efficiency, it seems like maybe just using one bank makes more sense. Now, the obverse of all this is we could certainly put out a formal bid for banking services overall, but I was really impressed with United Bank when I went and spoke with them one day, and I think we've been happy with their services.
Yeah.
And I think for the deposits and all that, isn't it easier if you found, are we putting deposits at United Bank or?
Yes, sir, we are putting deposits at the United Bank. It is it's much more easier to get into the United Bank than it is to get into the Truist and out of the bank. They do provide the locking bag, you do have the drop box that you sign for your bag. So it is a lot easier for our department to drive in and then to drive out, as opposed to one way in and one way out.
Great, great. Anybody have any questions or concerns or contrary views?
I'll just recap from how this came up. We were discussing that we have two accounts with, I don't have my microphone on. We were discussing that we have two accounts with Truist, and we were talking about how difficult it is to deal with Truist from an administrative perspective and from a law enforcement perspective. So we were looking at other banks possibly that we could move those two accounts to. If a new SPLOST passes, we'll also be required by law to open a new account for that one as well.
But that could all be with one bank, it just needs to be
Yeah.
a separate account, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, to me, it seems logical that if our money is insured, then, and it's easier, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if we're getting better customer service, let's reward that with more of our business.
So we were only dealing with the two banks.
Yes, sir.
Well, we had three at one time.
I'm not sure. We may have.
We had the hometown bank that we had to move it to BB&T when they couldn't handle the deposit regulations.
I mean, United Bank has been good about waiving fees. You know, they apparently, I mean, in one of the emails, there's discussion about they have a relationship with Emory University that, you know, they appreciate what the owners of the bank or the founders of the bank have. And so they were interested in trying to work with us even more.
yeah, Jim?
I think they were pretty well investigated before we ever went with them to start with, weren't they, George? Didn't you and Jerry do a good bit of?
Right. And they all have always had that collateral pledge tax thing anyway, so I mean, it's always, that's not nothing new. So that's not a problem.
But I think Jerry actually met with one of the chief operating officers, if not one of the owners, originated. So I'm very comfortable going with just United Bank.
Okay. I don't know whether we
I don't think you have to
have to vote on that. I think this is really more of an administrative maneuver. If y'all are okay, we'll go ahead and make those changes, consolidate under United Bank. Thanks for bringing that forward. It was, that was good to see.
I think what we kind of done before, I think you probably issued a memo to them authorizing them to do that. We didn't have to vote on it, but I think that we did. Put
They have it in writing.
To do that, yeah.
Yeah,
They'll
great,
probably ask for, yeah.
great. Okay. We'll do that. Thank you. Yeah, item 4,
On the wrong one.
with July 4th being on Monday, need to look at a new date. Y'all want to do the meeting on Tuesday, the 5th? Or would you rather do it the following Monday?
I would prefer following Monday because I'll be out of town.
I mean, that is an issue. A lot of people take the long week and are gone. It might,
It matter with me.
Doesn't matter to me.
Whatever makes everybody happy.
I think moving it a week would be
good.
better.
Okay.
better move.
All right.
11th.
Is that okay with y'all?
Normally, I would say it would be a struggle for us, but because we're so focused on the parade.
It'll actually give you a breath,
Yeah.
a chance to take a breath.
But that would be another reason to get it away from Tuesday, because the 4th being a holiday and everything going on.
Yeah.
Give the office a chance to catch up.
Yeah.
And besides that, you just took half of a volunteer, but putting the council on a truck.
We don't have to put the council on a truck.
I'm just hoping that truck's not headed out of town.
Well,
We're done some back alleys.
so what is that's the 11th,
11th.
July 11th. We'll have that. I don't know how y'all feel, but I'd be in favor of giving the staff some option of comp time on the 5th because they're having to work on the 4th.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Jill, Bill, would you be good with that?
Sure.
You need to have one person here,
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine with me.
not your prerogative.
All right.
I'm not getting into that.
Review of the 6-month police department report. Chief, thank you for writing that up.
I think y'all may have had an opportunity to read this, but we can highlight it and answer any questions that you may have. So as you may be aware or not aware, when I arrived, we had one officer who was working, and he decided to depart within a month after I took office. Unfortunately, he decided to depart, and he went over to the Newton County Sheriff's Department, where I understand he's doing well there. We have hired Lieutenant Westmoreland, who retired in February from DeKalb County. He brought to us a lot of years of experience, 25 years of experience, and I know it sounds like it might be a DeKalb County department, but it's not DeKalb County in any way possible.
It's been that way for years.
Well,
There seems to be a tunnel, you know that, right?
I don't know that, and I guess I was contacted by some people. However, they lost our game, I guess you could say that. That happens quite a lot in larger agencies. When you work for them, you have an opportunity to do a lot of training, you have an opportunity to have a lot of experience. My one goal here was to have officers with experience who would make good, sound judgments and not run after a car who has an expired tag, in turn causing a lot of liability and a lot of tragedy that happens. That happened over the weekend in Porterdale through the Sheriff's Department. Unfortunately, chased someone for what charges they may be, but someone lost their life regardless. So what happened, they died in a car accident. So we did hire Lieutenant Westmoreland, so he would be the second in command to drive the ship if I'm not here. You need to have a second in command, just as we have a deputy clerk and a deputy superintendent for the Public Works Department. Someone needs to be responsible for what's happening at the department. We then hired had very little effort on our own. We did some advertising, but I had several applicants. I had one who applied, who been out of law enforcement since 2000, out of it completely, worked from 98 to 2000 for the city of Covington, and went into the personal training business, and then was security officer. In essence, that would have been another officer you'd have to retrain. We had one applicant who applied, and we were ready to hire him, and he had a good background. We were waiting for the interview, and he never showed up. And so we were sitting there, all of us waiting in anticipation. He never came. And then we got an email that evening, and he withdrew his application that evening from there. And then we had Officer Roberts who applied, who came to us looking for the position. We interviewed him, we did his background. He had a lot of experience, but I feel it's important for us to have an investigator on staff who can handle certain type of crime that may occur in the city of Oxford. so much cars broken into, we need to be able to follow up with that. If we have some kind of criminal investigation that we can handle with the manpower that we have, then we should do that. We're a police department, it should fall on us. And then we had 3 people from the Emory at Oxford College apply just out of the blue, who wanted to come. And we hired Officer Tony Mancini, if I'm saying that correctly. He has over 33 years of experience. He's very close to a PhD. He took the opportunity. He worked for Emory University for over 20 years. So he took that opportunity to use the free tuition. He's very, very smart. So I feel we have a good, sound police department. Of course, I would always ask you to give me 2 more people. That would always be a vision. We do have some influx of crime that are coming in, but just to give you an idea, we are working from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. We're preparing to institute a weekend shift, duty shift, and then we alternate the off days during the week. So that is coming forward with that. We do currently have what's 3 post-certified police officer instructors. Myself, I'm one. Lieutenant Westmoreland is an instructor, and Officer Minichini is an instructor. Those certifications shouldn't be taken lightly. It's a pass or fail by the state. To give you an example of the firearms instructor, you walk in on Monday morning, you go and you shoot. If you don't qualify, then you go home. That's hard to send a person for 2 weeks to a certification course in the state of Georgia. It takes 2 weeks out of your time. If you just become a general instructor, that's 3 weeks. You go for a week, you take a written test, you go home for a week, write your lesson plan, you go back the 3rd week, and then you present, and if you pass the 3rd week, then you are certified by the state of Georgia to instruct law enforcement officers. So we do have an ability within our department to train our own officers, which is good. We don't have to send them out as much, but that is still going to happen. We do need to send officers to training. It makes them, it refreshes them and gives them new vigor to work the job. We do have a lot of training opportunities. I have met with a representative from our GMA, our insurance, and to a good surprise of mine, I've never had to work with an insurance company. The county was always self-insured, so they kind of just told me what you're going to do. I did learn that there are up to $6,000 in grants for the city of Oxford in itself. They can be used for public safety. Jody's office can use it. The office can use it. The only thing we have to do is designate a security person or a safety officer for the city. It may require a day training or a couple of days training a year for that person. In my opinion, that's a well-invested option for us to take for the city as a whole. So we are able to teach firearms. We can qualify our own people. We can go to the range. We have contact with the sheriff's department to use the outdoor range. We're going to contract with the indoor range to use that at the local range here, Shots Fired, as part of our operating procedures. We are partnering with the sheriff's department. Sometimes it can be difficult to get a response. As I said, they're very busy. I spoke to a sergeant today in their CID to enable us to do the follow-up on the cases that if something occurred while we're not here. So we are working with that. Within the next 6 months of the remaining year, we are going to have everyone trained in what's the Crisis Intervention Training Program. That's a 40-hour class. It'll be offered through Georgia Public Safety Center here at Georgia Piedmont Technical College.
Does that involve conflict resolution training?
Yes, sir, it does. Very much so. Very much so. It deals with that's
De-escalation training?
De-escalation training we do annually, every year. We have to do de-escalation training for our 20 years of required training by the state. If you don't have your de-escalation, it's use of force and de-escalation training you have to do is mandated, where opposed it used to just be 20 hours of training. That's part of our 20 hours. This 40-hour class that we're going to attend is, it does have the de-escalation training in it. It has crisis intervention training for mental health. It has a wide variety of training. It's not an easy class to go into. It's a 40-hour block. It's a pass or fail. And that is sponsored by the state. That is a federally funded program. And it's recommended that every police officer in the state of Georgia take that. So the remaining of us who have not had that training will go and get that training. It's not, they don't, I can tell you that there was a sheriff in the metro, in the state of Georgia who went and took the test and failed. And it wasn't just, oh, we're going to let you pass because you're the sheriff. That sheriff had to go and take that kind of class again, so it's not an easy course, but it is de-escalation and mental health training. They bring in mental health experts to assist you. It's dealing with someone that has mental illness is not an easy job, and that's where you see a lot of that, and some of it has to do with the de-escalation of it. Some people walk in with the attitude like I'm the boss, no matter what you say, what I say goes. That's not how we operate. That's not the kind of officer that I'm hiring or that we seek to hire here in Oxford. You have to have those skills and the ability to de-escalate a situation. You learn that over time, and you become pretty crafty with how you get the situations to de-escalate, but it does have that as part of it. Yes, sir, it does. We have decided to take our court dates, which requires everyone to work, to take the remainder of those days and use it as a training day. So while we're having in-house training, we may be in here training, we may be at the firing range training, we may be doing some de-escalation training. I may involve all of you guys if you would be wanting to come in and do some training as a role player. Anytime you're welcome to come and observe our training, I recommend you come and see what we do at any time. Or get in the car and ride with us if you like. I think that's a good idea. The property and evidence room, that was an outstanding job. That was money well spent by the city of Oxford for the two personnel who came and did that. There were 273 cases in that property room from 1997 until 2021, 24 years. It's kind of like if you have kids or you've had kids and they're grown, you open the door and you look at it, and it's easier to close the door than to ask them to clean it. That's what we dealt with upstairs. There was such a stench, as I told you before, it was nauseating. It's gone now. We don't have that. Over that time period, through the research, we had to research each case. Amber Reynolds assisted us with that, researching some cases. What was the disposition? Have they been resolved? Can we return the property? Does the property need to be destroyed? It should be in there 90 days unless it's being held for evidentiary value. You either destroy it, return it to the owner, hold it for evidence, or you use it for a police officer, something to do with the department. So as you can see here, we got the orders from the Superior Court to destroy these items. We did destroy 19 firearms that we could not return because of the owners were either convicted or it was evidence we didn't know who the owner was. We did return one firearm that belonged to a young lady who lived here. She moved out, or they kicked her out. The owner said, hey, we don't want this firearm, so it was brought for safekeeping. That was in 2011. It sat in the property room. We had contact with her. She lived in Dahlonega. She came down that day, retrieved it after a background check. Make them have a background check to ensure they're not a convicted felon, or they legally can have the firearm, or a domestic abuser through the background check. So we returned that to her. We destroyed 134 packages of marijuana that was seized. It was horribly smelling. You didn't want to smell it. You didn't want to use it. It was terrible. And then we did have $95 in cash that this gentleman was arrested in 2006 for cocaine. When he was arrested, his property was taken off of him, his cash. It was put into the police property room, and it sat there. And it sat there, and it sat there, and it sat there. We don't have any legal right to keep that person's property. If a person is arrested, it's turned over to them at the sheriff's department. It goes with their property. When they're released from jail, they get it back. He happily came down here that day after we convinced him that we're not going to arrest him. He was like, I saw these steams. I know what happens. You come down and say we're going to price, and we go to jail. So nope, that's not the case. So we were happy to give him his money back, $95. He may have had to put it in his gas tank to get here. But, as you've seen, that we have added the new body-worn camera. We are having the Axon representative going to be here on the 28th to install and operate the signal sidearm camera, or kit that will automatically activate your camera. Now this camera, you just basically turn it on, you hear the beep, it's recording. You hold it and it turns off, and then it's going to stop recording. It backs up 30 seconds prior to me pushing the record button, so it's recording 30 seconds, or we can set that for a longer time prior to us actually pushing this button, so we don't miss much.
Where does that video go?
This video is then downloaded upstairs into the police department, and then we secure it into a file that is only viewable by the police department and then the city manager if it's needed to be for use of force. So it has to be stored. And that's part of the contract that we have to sign with Axon. That's stored in the cloud. So we document what it is, if it's a traffic stop, domestic, or any other kind of call that we go out on, and then it's classified. We will maintain them for a certain period of time, and then they will be deleted after the time period.
That begs the question, are our officers required to turn that on in every situation that they are involved in, as in domestic
Yes.
situation?
Anytime that we're dispatched to a call, they have to turn this on. If they stop a vehicle, they turn this on. It's my recommendation that they turn it on with any interaction with the public. It's easy just to hit the thing on the phone, and you can label it as junk or whatever it may be. And then we go through and we have to review it. It's recommended practice that body cameras are reviewed, not sporadically, but you just choose one and look at it to see what the interactions are with the officer. They may not have a traffic stop.
Sort of random.
Yes, ma'am. That's recommended to be done by myself and the lieutenant, just to kind of for a check and balance, going from there. But it is, and I do recommend, and we are trying to get them in the habit of having an interaction with the citizens. The lieutenant had an interaction with a citizen yesterday who was upset about some kids who were playing basketball over the weekend, and it was not he was not happy. He called and complained. I spoke to him this morning. He was still not happy. And I felt that it would have been better if the lieutenant kind of kicks himself. He's like, man, I wish I would have hit record. Had I known what the outcome would have been, he would have hit record. Not that he did anything wrong. It's just that resident did not like the answers that he received from the lieutenant. And he didn't like the answers that he received from me this morning. So
Did you record your interaction?
I was on the telephone.
Okay.
So,
I'm just asking.
no, I did not. I didn't. I did not record my interactions. I took my notes. And I asked some questions about the person, and I was given
If
some.
somebody asked you, you said you had a confrontation with somebody.
It wasn't a
I mean,
confrontation.
what I mean, I didn't mean, I'm sorry to say confrontation. You had a kind of unpleasant conversation evidently.
It
They
was,
called you
yes.
about it.
Yes, sir. You did.
So I'm thinking, it looks like if I was an officer, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, and kind of get to that point, I'm automatically hit my button, because if I know that, I don't have any defense.
Yes, sir. Well, and that's kind of where we're trying to get to. And it wasn't necessarily a confrontation. That's kind of like the de-escalation we talked about. You kind of take a lot of these things as you go along as a police officer. Now, had this been a younger officer, he might have been jumped out and had a worse situation. But the more experience you have in this job, you just kind of learn to smile and nod and be compassionate and understanding. And then when I talked to the gentleman this morning, I just kind of explained to him that the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Georgia doesn't allow us to do those kind of things. I recommended that he contact 911 when any of this occurs. And the response was, why do we got to put it off on them? And I said, well, we are 911. We get dispatched through 911. And his response was, well, why do we do that? Because then they got to call you at the office, and then you got to go. I said, no, sir, we get dispatched over to police ready. That's how we get dispatched to calls, and that's what we recommend and request that all the citizens do. I mean, we're paying for a service, we should utilize it. It's faster to notify us of that. So it wasn't in a negative way, but he just was not happy with the answers that we gave him.
Yeah.
You know, I just said, with you as a supervisor,
Say no
you
more.
wouldn't have to know whether to take his side or this, or the person's side if it's on the recording.
Correct.
Then you know what happened. Other than that, it's he said, she said, or he said type situation.
Well, he did say some things that I knew that's what the lieutenant said. Quite frankly, I don't necessarily see a problem with some kids who have a portable basketball goal and they're playing basketball in the street. And as long as that basketball goal is not stationed there all the time, And if they can put it back at night, if they're not impeding the flow of traffic, the
But-
response was, what's the big deal?
That doesn't appear to be the point to me. I think, I would recommend that SOP be turned,
That's correct.
anytime you interface with a citizen or whatever, you turn that camera on.
That's correct, and that is one of the.
We voted to get those cameras to protect you guys,
Yes.
but
Yeah, so I think that's the takeaway. This was a good,
And
a
that
good
is what
lesson
the SOP
learned.
is,
Yeah.
and it's one of those, it's a situation to where you don't want to have to be, I'm the police all the time.
yeah,
I need to talk to you.
but they don't need to know, they don't need to hear your beep beep.
No,
You can do the beep beep before we get out of the car.
correct, and that's what that's what occurred. As the lieutenant had expected, as most of the people that we have spoken to who've come up have all said, hey, I'm so-and-so, I just wanted to meet you and just introduce myself. And he was expecting that, and I think he was kind of taken aback because of what this gentleman was saying.
Here's a case in point. George will probably remember this. A certain citizen who will go unnamed, but everybody knows, came here to a council meeting one night and was raising Cain about the police officers hitting on his wife. Now, as far as I'm concerned, with all due respect, the officer had to be blind to be hitting on his wife, but that's neither here nor there. That if he'd had that recording, I mean, if this guy, and he's one that will push something, he will go get a lawyer in a heartbeat. He
Exactly.
may have one in his closet, but if he'd had that button on, then there wouldn't have been quite as much question as there was.
Yes, well, that was
So
the actual.
that's for your protection and the city's protection as well. Do
Absolutely.
you remember that, George?
Slightly.
Yeah.
that's
He
where-
stood right over there in that corner, and that it was, the chief at the time was, no, he was the one that was police chief and became city manager.
Clark,
Oh,
Clark Miller,
Clark.
Clark.
Yeah, and I said, I don't even believe that about Clark.
And that was the takeaway, is that you do have the interaction, and then you do have the complaint, and then you do have the corrective action, which is to ensure that if you have an interaction with the public, is to turn your camera.
Yeah.
So that was the corrective action that was taken with the lieutenant. And just to be in all fair to the lieutenant, as I contacted him yesterday about something else, he's like, has that guy already called you? And that was within 2 minutes. And as we'll discuss later on, maybe in private, you'll probably know who the person is.
I know.
So that was, one of the takeaways as far as some of their interactions with the public that we've had. And then we've had one pushback on the mayor's very familiar with it, the commercial vehicles driving. We had a gentleman who issued 2 citations from, quite frankly, Officer Johnson. He was issuing 2 citations for a commercial vehicle in his yard. He came to court, the city solicitors felt it at that time, he said the vehicle was broke. If you allow me time to repair the vehicle, I'll have it moved. Sure, came back to court, police chief, you go checked it, I checked it, it's gone. They dismissed 2 of his citations. The vehicle came back. He parked it again. We left him a nice little card. Explained to him, you can't drive your vehicle on the city roadways because of the gross vehicle weight. He made a complaint. He brought it up as a racial issue. And the lieutenant at that time, he was given several locations within the city of Oxford. He went out and found it. He found the vehicle that was in violation. Knocked on the door, talked to him, and then the vehicle's now been moved. So it was, in all fairness, it was a racial issue.
I wasn't trying to give the lieutenant a hard time.
Oh, no, but for you, for your, you need to know that, but that is the SOP, is to have it recording. And you record it, and if you don't need it, you can always dispose of it. And that's kind of where it was, but he was not gonna be happy with any answer I gave him. He didn't only complain on the lieutenant, he complained on everything. So, and a lot of things out of my
That's one of
control.
those cases
I'm sure
where
he
you
has
don't,
a
it's
list,
better to have
and
it
he
not
reads the
needed than need
minutes
it
and
not
he
have.
takes
It's-
notes.
it's,
He's stopped.
It's better to have it than not needed. So the body cameras have been great, they're gonna work well. The taser that we're gonna employee will also operate this camera. If it's pulled out, it'll automatically turn it on. That's one of the disadvantages, you do have to turn it on. So going forward, we will get the new patch unveiled shortly when we get it all modified. The taser will be equipped to activate the cameras. We are going to add 2 bicycles to the department. I think that's a good thing to do. Just so you know, it's not a continuously 8-hour patrol shift on the motorcycle. It'll be utilized when you have enough personnel here to go out and say, hey, we're going to go get on the trail and ride on the trail, or we're going to ride through the park. It gives you more of a softer approach to the citizens. It's just something where people can come up and kind of look at and say, wow, that's really cool. You can host your bike rides in the evenings, as we discussed, and community rides. I think it's important for us to show that we care about the health of the citizens, and just to say this is how you safely ride a bicycle. This is what we're going to use this for. This is how we're going to use this. It's not meant to be deployed as a 911 response per se. But I think we do have a responsibility as a city to protect the students and those who do travel on our paths. We do have a golf cart. I kind of find it hard to say that we can drive our golf cart on the path, but you can't drive your golf cart on the path. You can use it as a patrol if that's what you choose. I do believe that it is a better approach for that. Along with that, we do want to introduce a more of a called high-vis type uniform, which is like your traffic safety vest that you would see. We don't have them now. I don't think that we would have them in time enough for the 4th of July parade, but that would be wonderful. It's very hot, as you know, outside. Fortunately, right now, I don't have on my outer carrier with the vest, but when you're out directing traffic, it's warm. And that, again, is another approach to, if you're walking on the trail, you're going to see that yellow shirt and black, that's the police officer. I know what I can do. I know who I need to approach. That's where Officer Mendicini came into play from Emory. He said, them students are out there a lot. He said, sometimes you'll catch a young lady out there smoking marijuana. It may not be a student, it might be a high school kid or someone from around here. And he said, it's not necessarily that they're using marijuana, but if you smell marijuana, that just attracts somebody out there smoking. Maybe I can go. So the more visible we can be, then the better off it's going to be. And that's going to be for all the officers. The weekend schedule we talked about coming in. Just to be clear, I had no idea that we charge people to use the pavilion at the park. I thought it was kind of come as you first come, first serve.
It is, if it's not reserved, you can use it.
I did not know that you
Yeah.
would pay to reserve it.
Oh, yeah.
For that. I just thought it was just, hey, we're having a birthday party. This person's going to use the tables. Well,
Yeah,
I want us to be able to be in the presence in the park. We all know in today's time that everyone is not as cordial as
Yep.
some. They may not care. You've got a birthday party for your kid or your whoever, they don't care. But then again, it's going to be hard for us to enforce that kind of a wall. But if you're present, you might be able to deter some of that. So that is what we're looking forward to do with that. We are looking forward to the bike rodeo that Councilman Jim suggested in this fall. That'll be nice. We are also going to go forward with another recommendation from Councilman Wendell. He's going to be busy. So, he's going to be busy. For the community meetings, to allow the public to come out. Let's have a cookout, let's have something, or a light refreshment, snacks or something of that nature.
I would like, right here, where you paragraph the bike rodeo thing, that Bill and Mark and I were at a rodeo in Covington, and the Covington Police Department had somewhere between 5 and 10 policemen on bicycles there, representing the city of Covington Department. And, I was just kind of impressed with that.
That's been a great success for the City of Covington's Police Department. I'm in contact with the lieutenant who's in charge of that. He actually wanted me to go to work for them before I came here to be on the bike patrol. I respectfully declined, but we do have about 17 officers who can ride a bike. Of course, they're a lot larger than we are, but we do have people capable enough. And it was very well received by the people who rode the bicycle. Danny, from the farm, there was a lot of people from Emory there. I met a lot of people from the college and a lot of people from Oxford. And I'm sorry, I didn't
If Florian Pohl was there, he's
yes.
professor.
So,
Does Emory have a bike patrol?
I'm sorry.
Emory, do they have any bike patrol?
They do.
Oh,
I've never seen it in the neighborhood, that's why.
They do. Actually, we were by there last week and we met with the Lieutenant Randall, who is I guess, kind of the commander of the college here. And we met a young lady, I cannot remember her name, but she was really excited because they got a new bike. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna ride the new bike today, so we do have that. And I did ask about our department working with them, and the lieutenant says, absolutely. We're having a new safety type officer, not a police officer, and their main job at that campus will be on a bike.
I was thinking, since a lot of the students use the trail, their bike officers, can they not patrol the trail?
They don't have any jurisdiction on the trail.
I mean, that's what they're.
So they do-
I'm
That's
thinking-
not-
Chief, just so
that's
you
not
know,
a
they
college
own the section from Moore Street
Over there,
up to
correct.
George Street, because
Yes.
it's on their property.
Correct, and they do
Yeah.
ride that, and they do occasionally come a little farther out, but they do ride that section of the trail, and that was, we were talking about that earlier with Officer Minichini, is the part that is actually the campus.
I mean, I see them ride the neighborhood, even though I know they do have a facility not too far from where I live, and they're probably going back and forth to that.
Correct.
Which I think kind of gives us a little more visibility, because police is police, regardless.
Yeah.
Most people,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it's have everyone on their way to have it, you know.
It is, and that's a relationship that I'm looking forward to rebuilding with the college, that I have requested that when they do have an active shooter training, that we can be involved with them. I think it's important for us to know what that campus is, what's happening. I will go ahead and tell you that you will not, I just like to say that, but I don't believe that you will have any incident like what happened in Uvalde, Texas, from any police officer here. There's something happening and we're going inside. That's not kind of like what you signed up to say. I kind of signed up to do this, but everyone that we have spoken to on our staff firmly believe that.
I'm thinking from the flack that they're getting in Uvalde, I don't think no police would do that again.
Well, I would like to say that's true. That's not the first time it's happened. It's happened in Florida. You don't know what a person is going to do under those circumstances. You pray that they're going to do what you want them to do and what you would expect them, how you would expect a police officer to react. Those situations are no fun to go into.
I bet.
And I just, to me, I'm baffled by it. However, that is a relationship we are building back with the college. We're here. I don't think that school is going to go anywhere. It's not moving.
But I think it's a good point. It's like, I think they had some active shooter training, and our guys weren't even aware they were doing, and
Yes.
we need to be a part of that, because we're going to respond to it. And y'all, your team needs to know the campus and know the facilities and know have a sort of collective understanding of what the,
Not only for the
procedure
college,
is.
but even for the Newton County school systems here.
Yeah.
Our Mainstay Academy.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to have it again here. My staff took it maybe 2 years ago, but most of my staff
whole new
has
staff since then.
changed. And do your office, any of your officers, are they qualified to teach that?
Yes, we are. We are, I'm an alert instructor myself. That's the national program. I think it's important for the city as a whole to have that. I think it's important for you to come out and be involved in that.
I think so too.
yeah.
What would happen if someone came in here?
Yeah.
How would you
Yeah.
react?
yeah.
I would be amenable to you putting up the metal detectors because of everything that's going on, put it in here. And also, I wondered if you would be amenable to having a weapons turn-in program,
Buyback or just turn?
buyback, any kind of way we can do it. that would make be reasonable for the city. Given that apparent attitude of this council toward the resolution and that sort of thing that we've been working on, I think that fits right into it. And the more those things that are being done, the more
Awareness.
acceptable and aware that they become. People think, well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, if my neighbor did it, I'll do it.
Along the same lines, I really would love to see like a gun safety workshop that the police department does for the community, because we talked about that briefly before. They're hard to get into because they're popular, you know, and they should be. And if you have, I don't have a gun, I don't know anything about guns, but people do, and they should know how to handle them responsibly. And
Absolutely, yes, ma'am, I agree with that, and that is not out of the question. I think the only thing that we would be concerned with would be staffing. Maybe we can do it in conjunction with other agencies within the county, and talk with the sheriffs and the other police departments. That would probably be a good gesture for all of Newton County to do.
And I would like to have, if you're amenable to this, it goes along with what Laura's saying and what we're talking about, active shooter. I don't know exactly what I would do were I to be in Walmart or someplace like that, and it all started. You know, other than cry a lot and, you know, right there and clean my pants when I got home. But, you know, that's something we all need to know now.
It's very,
That's a horror, but it's true.
absolutely, you're right. There's been several requests from,
It's funny you brought that up, Jim. When I got to the place now, I go to Walmart, Home Depot, any of those places, I start looking for exits. I get in mind where exits are, so I know which way I'm gonna run.
Well,
Yeah.
I do the same thing in restaurants. I try to be seated where I can see the door.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I'm sorry,
She said
Oh, I said
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I don't like to have my back to the door.
but unfortunately, all the chairs don't face the door.
I know.
So,
Yeah, but I look for those, you know, exits in the back on the side where you don't normally exit.
Right.
Unless it's an emergency.
Right.
I look for those, so I know, you know, like I said, when you go to a hotel, you know, you look for where, the fire escape exit type thing, you look at that so you'll know which way, instead of waiting till something happens, you know which way to go.
exactly.
So we could host a training here, maybe.
we
For
should,
the community.
and we should partner with our, the churches within the community.
Yeah.
I know I've had
Oh, yeah.
several
gosh, yeah.
community people who've asked me, how do you do about, do you know anything about fraud with senior citizens, and how, you know, what do you recommend, how do you suggest? So we do have the abilities to do that. And the good thing is that we have a department that has that shared vision. So we do have people who are interested in seeing this as a success as a city. I think it's important for us to educate. We talked about the gun resolution. It's important for us to try to find a mental health professional who can come in and say, hey, we can help you in these situations. Whomever it may be, someone who's trained specifically for that. That's important for us to do. It's going back, finishing up here, so we won't take up too much time. We are going to issue the single laptop for the officers, which will work as a vehicle computer and their desktop computer.
That's great.
Right now, they have 2 computers, some things they can do in the car, other things they have to come to the office. We were talking about that today, and I think it's visibility. I said, I need the visibility. If you can deploy from your car when you hit the city limit, you don't have to really, well, you have to come in and get your camera, but you're on duty. We talked about the city cell phones, and one of them asked me, so, well, do we have to use it? I just don't want to carry 2 phones. I said, yes, you'll have to use it. Why do you got to use it? Because if you go to the house, you need to take a picture. If you got an email, you need to take an email. If you're on your way to work and I call you and it's 2:30 and say, we got a situation, come directly here, I want you to answer that phone. And it's easier if you just have one phone to subpoena. The police chief in the city of Dunwoody has had his phone subpoenaed. They want to see all text, emails, and when you go and use your personal phone, all your personal stuff is out there. Then they cannot necessarily use it. They have to be, open records is kind of reserved. However, I don't think anybody here would want us to take their personal cell phone and start to go through it. It's not uncommon. I've had hard drives seized. I've had phones seized because of incidents with the officers that were involved. And of court order says you gotta give it over, you get to turn it over. So going forward, that is our goal, is to reduce it to one computer that will utilize for both. We do have 2 computers upstairs right now that are dying, the desktops. When you get the blue screen, it's not good to see. When your programs won't run, that's not good to see. So just so you know, it's been my pleasure to be here. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very excited. Sometimes the pace seems like we're moving fast, and sometimes you gotta move fast to make it happen. So if you have any questions on any of this, I'll be glad to answer them now. If you want to reserve them for later, call me up. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question, you had mentioned when you have court days, the end of the day you're going to use for training and that we're welcome to join. Is there any way you could like shoot counsel, just like today we'll be working on blah, 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 meet here at such and such, and then if we don't show up, we don't show up. But
Absolutely.
if it strikes a chord, yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely,
If that's
yes,
not
ma'am,
too
we
much.
can do that going forward. I think it would be good for you to do that. We do have a training session tomorrow, which is kind of more of a SOP and goal. Just how we want it to work, how we need it to work. And we do have to have the GCIC audit, which is rescheduled from last week, so we can't tell the state no, they just show up when they want to show up. It was scheduled for last week, but the auditor couldn't make it, so she called this morning and said, I'll be there tomorrow between 12 and 12:30. And it's like, great, let me know. I'll go upstairs in case court's still taking place. So, but yes, ma'am, going forward, we can do that.
Chief, I appreciate
Yes, sir.
all you're doing and appreciate the memo and the report tonight. And I've told you before, if there's any, you tell us how we can equip and support you guys to do the job you need to do.
Sure.
And that's what I'm committed to do, is to support you. I appreciate the direction you're headed.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Awesome. The next item is Oxford Plan Commission. We have a vacancy with Zach May moving, and his family moving out of town. Dave Huber has indicated he'd be willing to serve. Dave is a retired hospital administrator, medical doctor, lives right over here, 2 doors down from Mainstay Academy. I think he'd be a great person to serve. If y'all are amenable, we can vote to put him on the commission. Y'all just have the one right now, Bill?
Yes, sir.
That's the only nomination I've really heard, and I know that he's
I think he'd be
expressed
good.
willingness to, and I think he's very conscientious. He'll be there for meetings, which is important, and he's very thoughtful. So we'll put that up for a vote at our July meeting. Great. All right. Review of the Coke Street Trail scope of work and budget estimate. You all,
I have to say, I really liked the thorough nature of Robert Jordan's work.
yeah,
I thought he did great, it wasn't sort of sketchy, and I mean, it's nicely detailed, and I feel like I have a real idea of what's going to happen.
And the walk that we had with him, he brought all that back to
Yes,
the table.
yes, yeah, he did. Did a good job with it.
so, yeah, I mean, at this point, if you all are comfortable with what he has provided, we can move towards getting an RFP out and get some bids on doing the actual work. Test out his estimates of what costs will be, and go ahead and move to the next phase of actually developing that trail. So, any questions about it? Great. Well, Bill, we'll give him the nod to get the RFP together.
Great.
Awesome. Okay, we are at other business. The first item, thought we could talk about the gun resolution that was developed by the committee, sent out by email. I sent earlier today, just an edited version. A lot of it was formatting and maybe some sentence structure stuff.
I'm
found it insulting because
I know you did not because you told me you wouldn't. And then Marcia even caught some additional stuff and reformatted it. So I don't know if you can bring that up and we
Yeah,
can take a
that's
look
what
at
Trying to do.
the resolution. A couple of things. One was, Laura and I both felt like there's one case where it said that the mayor and council and citizens of the city, that in this case, we should just speak for the mayor and council. We represent the city, but we can't, in this instance, necessarily assert that we speak for them. But I think, that was kind of without putting it to a vote of the citizens.
just one point right there,
Yeah.
back up a little bit if you would.
Yeah.
I think the word "that" is superfluous, that would be resolved.
You could. Yeah.
But I won't.
It was interesting in a number of templates, that was the suggested format, but it's certainly not grammatically required.
That it's awkward, but in my mind, but I don't.
Yeah,
care.
I'm good with just taking
You know,
that out.
As long as the basic idea is
Yeah.
there, the fundamental idea is there.
The other thing, Jim, that I added was, in some cases, buyers and owners.
Okay.
Because they aren't necessarily buying, they may just already own or have otherwise acquired a weapon, and so, want to make it clear that it applied to owners, so,
Well, whatever we can do to get this thing going, the basic idea, the fundamentals
Yeah.
are there. We can't cover every possibility. What my mind is to try to get, as I told Laura, and I mentioned to you, and Laura and I were talking, so I mentioned to her, there is a board of commissioners that says he's gonna take this forward as soon as we pass it. I'm been asked to send a copy immediately.
Great.
And so that could be the beginning of the ball rolling and getting bigger and bigger.
sorry.
Because if enough towns and enough counties do this, then something will push it forward. We will either elect people that will do something about it, or the people that are already there will do something about it. And that's the whole idea of the resolution in my mind. And I think, I can't speak for the rest of the committee, but I think that's pretty well the way it came out.
Yeah.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
Jim and I and George discussed some of these things. There are a few things here that I think are very appropriate, but I do not foresee them being passed. But I think I'd rather set the bar high than lower it to what we think may happen. And at least we're doing the best we can as far as we are concerned as a city and council.
Well said.
Appreciate that. I have a question for the chief. Someone has shared with me that there's been some issues in past laws about definitions of weapons. And that when we say assault rifles, that something can be classified, it can look virtually the same and be classified an assault rifle, a pistol, and a non-assault. So I'm just sensitized to that. I don't know whether there's an answer to that. I think we all kind of adopt more of a sort of a common sense view when we say assault weapon. Everyone understands what we mean, but I don't know. Any thoughts on?
So that's typically what people think of as an assault rifle is a AR-15.
Yeah.
Is what you think of as an assault rifle. Military use before Vietnam, we came out through Korea, right at the end of Korea through the Vietnam era. If I'm correct, Jim.
Yeah, I'm old enough.
More a lot, because before that was just the M1 Garand.
M1.
In 14.
So
M1, M14, M16.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, there you are. So that is a,
I used to have to hold them.
heavy, correct? So that is one of the concerns. People say assault rifle, AK-47, which is a Russian model firearm. A long gun is what we call them, is a long gun. We have a pistol. Kind of the easiest way to think of a gun is a semi-automatic fire gun, or firearm is what we carry, is a 9mm semi-automatic weapon, or a cowboy gun, which is a revolver. So, hence, not a lot of people know what they are. So then when you look at the assault rifle, we call them a patrol rifle. You can have a carbine, which could be a rifle, or a handgun could use, or a carbine, 9mm, or 45, like an old cowboy gun you'd see, a long Colt. That's what you can think of for that. But that is kind of the concern, is when people see the military type assault weapon, or M4 is what they're calling it.
Because the resolution, I believe in the resolution, it says automatic, semi-automatic.
That's correct.
And
Large capacity.
large capacity magazine.
Yeah.
So it does not specify rifle versus handgun. It really speaks
Or
to
weapon,
or,
except as automatic weapon, semi-automatic weapon.
yeah.
So it's being able to do a lot of killing without reloading, without stopping and
Right.
reloading, right? Is that the
That's a high capacity.
high
magazine.
capacity, okay. I don't know.
Sure.
The- The biggest problem you have is why we put this semi-automatic and automatic weapons. The majority of the public do not understand the real difference. I mean, would you know what an automatic versus a semi-automatic
I
would
freely
be?
admit I know nothing about that.
See, an automatic weapon is when it fires rapidly, you pull the trigger one time, go like that, okay?
Okay,
Semi-automatic, each time you pull the trigger,
Okay.
okay? And that's what the difference is. So I felt as if, and well, we all did, when I brought this about, I said it would be imperative to mention both. I think would be a better appropriate way to talk about it than would be just to talk about an automatic weapon. Because these people don't know really what a lot of the difference is. And maybe some people will look at this and say, oh, maybe I ought to look up what the difference is. So that's why we did what we did.
well, I think enumerating them is only better, you know, instead of leaving it vague.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right. This
specifically
is
enumerating is
nailing it
better,
down,
yeah.
in my opinion. I mean,
So I think we all want to make sure everyone is comfortable with the resolution. If there's questions, if there's clarifications, because it speaks, it sends a different message when it's a consensus than if there's a vote with dissension. So does anybody have any, I mean, I know you may not, so read it now if you haven't had a chance to yet and raise questions. Let's,
If you need me to move the screen, there's a little bit that's not
Yeah.
showing.
I know, because I know it was kind of flying around as late as this afternoon, so I want to make sure everybody reads it.
Lynn has a question.
I had a question regarding, where did
Thanks, Jim.
the age of 25 come in? Like, is that just an arbitrary number? People thought, oh, by the time you're 25, you're more mature.
No, there's actual psychological research or brain
Okay.
development research that's, and Chief, you may be more familiar with this, I don't
The
know, but
deconstructed teen brain.
certainly, the maturation, particularly of the male brain, is a little more delayed. And so just putting people in a more of a mature position before they are,
I think that's about the time that the brain stopped growing, not regenerating, but growing.
Okay.
That might be. Mine stopped a long time before.
I think it's
Don't tell
between
people that,
21
though.
and 25, depending on the individual.
That's
But,
the time when your automobile insurance go down a little bit.
yes,
you stop doing stupid things or do less
We
stupid
just
things.
There's a
want
reason.
to, we just want to get something. you
Yeah.
know.
yeah.
Up at the 21, I'm good, but
I'm good with it, and
Yeah.
and maybe we ought to just take the,
Well, I think it's
Vote,
like you
not a
said
vote
before,
necess-
that some of this is, do you mind the expression, pie in the sky,
Aspirational. I like
Yeah.
aspirational.
but it's needed to be up there in order to get something, a message sent across.
Yeah.
we're just
And-
trying to tell people we back them up
And-
to do it, that's all.
as Jim said, the ball has to start someplace, and there is yet to be a real approach taken to it by any council or anybody else that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm not saying there's not, and some other cities may have already done some of this, but I think from our standpoint, we feel as if we can be one of the first, it will help a lot of other smaller communities to look at it and say, hey, you know, these people came up with something,
Yep.
It may not all be right, it may not pass and whatever, but let's try it. It's not gonna hurt.
So just because I'm a geek, I have to point out that we don't have a constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have life, liberty, and property in the Constitution.
Yeah,
So the
well-
Declaration of Independence says right to happiness.
Right, well, then this
So,
is.
and then we're talking about a constitutional amendment, so we're equating them since they're in the same, you see what I'm saying? So
You got a
it's
point there.
purely splitting geek hairs there, but we might want to consider removing the pursuit of happiness, because if a lawyer reads it, they're gonna go, well, they're not the same thing, or they're not on the same.
But we aren't asking for a constitutional amendment.
No, we're not, but so
What
we're
you're-
saying, whereas we also want to safeguard the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness while supporting the basic Second Amendment rights to bear arms. You know, to me, when I read that sentence, it sounds like we're saying, since we have these constitutional rights, we also want to support our Second Amendment rights, but happiness isn't really in there, in the
Well,
Constitution.
happiness,
I will
But we
not-
can leave it, I'm just being geeky, it's okay.
But if this gets the headwind that we expect, somebody is gonna do some rewriting.
Yeah.
You gotta expect
I
that.
do expect absolutely nobody but us to adopt this specific resolution.
No, it's true, but it's a gesture. We're making a symbolic movement, a symbolic gesture.
I mean, you know, you.
That's the
no
most
issue.
important part.
I really don't have any issues with
If is a concern we're mixing our documents, like.
Yes, because one is a constitutional
The
right.
inalienable right to
Yeah,
life,
yeah.
liberty.
Life, liberty, and property, but I'd leave property off. I just say to life and liberty.
it. As long
Because
as we're
people
not
are being
mixing
deprived
up.
of life.
Well, at least property make you happy.
Well, except people will say my gun's my property. You know what I'm
I
saying? so-
understand, I
yeah.
just put it out much.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry,
Let's
okay.
take it out, so we,
Geek moment, sorry. Y'all, whatever y'all want.
Well, I don't know what is the thought,
I don't have any issues with it one way or the other. That, I just feel like
It's a
They-
statement of how we feel.
they raise it
It's
so
not
much-
necessarily what everybody in the world is gonna feel.
Oh, yeah.
they've raised so much hell about the right to bear arms. Don't I have a right to life, liberty, and
Yeah.
pursuit of happiness? I'm not equating it to the,
Certainly
don't those
life.
children have a
Oh,
right
yeah.
to
Absolutely.
life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
Mm-hmm.
And if happiness is property, then fine. You know,
Well-
and I'm not trying to be a pain, but I really
No.
don't care. Take it out.
And
It's-
no,
it's-
I'm just having a little geek out moment, that's all. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm happy with either way, whatever y'all want to do. But, so,
Well, I'm happy with us moving forward as printed.
As am I. It's the thought that counts.
right.
yeah. No, I wasn't trying to make a problem. I think it's great. I'm so happy with you guys. I think it's great.
anybody have any hesitation with it? 'Cause we're
No,
gonna-
I mean, I understand what you're covering, like I said, it doesn't matter to me whether it's in or out. I mean, you got the same.
I mean, to me, in a way, it's a nice juxtaposition of, there's this natural right
Right.
that
Yeah.
we all believe we have to life and liberty and pursuit of happiness. And that's being compromised
Yes.
by other people's sort of categorical assertion that they have the right to just go out on the day of and buy an assault rifle.
No,
That was the idea-
poetically,
That was the idea behind it.
Yeah.
That was the idea.
yeah, and poetically, I
Yeah.
absolutely think it should be there.
Constitutional right, but that was the idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's constitutional hair splitting, that's all.
I understand, I read it. I wish it meant more to other people too.
Resolutions are supposed to have feeling.
That's right, so that's
It's
right.
Not a
Little
thick
passion.
sentence
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, so no, it's perfectly appropriate.
So are you gonna print out a copy and we're all gonna sign so he can send it off, or is he gonna send it off?
Well, we'll have to, again, we'll have to hold a special call meeting. What
At
was
7
discussed
on
was doing it on Friday,
At 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. We'll come in, we'll just do this, and then, yeah, we'll have the printed out copy. Y'all sign it before you leave, and then we'll have the
I'm
document.
gonna call me this Friday.
If everybody's amenable to that. It'd be a way we can get it. Is that, can we do that? Isn't it 48 hours for a call meeting? 24 hours? Could we do one?
I think we're
Friday.
splitting the
It's Wednesday.
constitutional hairs.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I thought I'd have to advertise how it's going.
So Friday at 7.
Yeah,
yes.
Can
Coming
we,
Friday at 7? Okay.
2
that's
days
fine.
from now.
can we, should we discuss who we plan to send this to? I would suggest all of our state.
I think that was yeah, I mean, early on was
And that's
implied,
the
we'd send it to our
representatives and the governor.
county, state, and federal representatives.
Maybe GMA.
We
And-
could share it with, GMA.
Oh, nice, yeah, absolutely.
Marcel Baines. City of Covington.
You think you ought to go from the
All right.
bottom up or the top down?
Well, if y'all are,
Whichever one makes you
okay,
happiness.
so we'll consider that done. There's 2 more items I just want to touch on real quick, before we go. One is, we haven't had any real discussion about this yet, and we're gonna have hearings, so we'll have time to have more discussion, but I just want I wanted to communicate it verbally to you all. The intention is to propose that we maintain our millage rate at the current rate of 5.664, I think, whatever it is, what the current rate, which, and I will tell you, I find it highly offensive that the state law requires that we say that if we are going to do that, we are raising taxes. Because taxes are a percentage of something, and we are saying that we are still going to tax at the same rate of 5.664, I think that's the number. But that recognizing assessed values have gone up, and therefore the overall amount of tax, it's like you got to raise, if you make more money, you pay more dollars in taxes, but you pay the same tax percentage. But we're going to have to say we're raising taxes. Anyway, I just want to but that is the intent. And the reason is the cost of governing, of doing city government, general government continues to go up. And we, for a long time, actually lowered our revenue supporting that from the general fund, from property taxes. We've just recently kind of gotten back to where we were in 2007. And so if we go with the rollback rate, it keeps our projected taxes levied at around $140,000, I think it's $141,000, versus staying with the rate we're at, which will increase it by about $40,000 to $185,000. And that's not a whole lot, but it pays for one of our staff members. It matters. And frankly, the other piece is, Bill and I have been talking to ECG. Our rate for our utility, for our electric rate, is one of the highest in the state. It's much higher than the MEAG average. It's higher than Covington. It's higher than Georgia Power. And the reason for that is that we are using that to subsidize shortfalls in revenue from the general fund. So just understanding that we are taxing our citizens through another means to meet a shortfall and taxing them on the property tax side. But the cost of services that should be covered by property taxes continue to go up, and we need to reflect that in the increase of our property tax revenue.
I think we should consider that in light of what the total utility bills are, not just the electrical bills.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
Because when I worked in Atlanta and I talked with people in our office, we were always lower than they had total utility bill, not just electrical.
Well, but the issue is you separate your funds. I mean, they're not,
That's an interior thing, Bill, for us to work with and pay and allocate and operate that way.
not really.
Not really, it's separated on the bill, but, I don't send a bill, the water department, I don't send a check to.
But the water department is meant to pay for the water department, and the electric department is meant to pay for the electric department. You're not supposed to really mix them. I mean, it's not good practice, I'm just saying.
Well, we're talking about mixing the taxes with the electric, so I mean, so those two
I didn't know that we were.
No, we have been, because of, actually until 2 years ago, from 2007, we ran right about break even, possibly a slight surplus on our general funds revenue versus expenditures. From that time on until about 2 or 3 years ago, we ran at a deficit in our general fund, and we made up that deficit with a transfer from the electric fund. And so we had gotten back to where our general fund revenue, in part because of lost revenues going, escalating, and the insurance premium tax going up to help close that gap. But, you know, again, we need to be mindful of general government costs should be covered by general government taxes, which include property taxes, to the extent that is possible, or at least we should minimize the amount to which they need to be under or subsidized by, you know, our enterprise taxes.
What's the value of us owning the electrical system?
The revenue that's generated from electrical it's very important for going towards infrastructure improvements. Our water utility only has a surplus of less than $100,000 of revenue to, I think that's what the number was this year. We looked at it a lot. So it's not paying any bills for major infrastructure improvements. But if we need to put in the new water line, we got probably a couple $1 million worth of water line on Haygood Avenue that we need to put in. That money can come from, you know, SPLOST or a loan, GFA loan, or it can come from the revenue that we generate from our enterprise funds.
What infrastructure comes out of the electrical system?
Well, currently, any funds that are not spent on electrical or any revenue that's not spent on electrical expenditures either gets transferred to, but some amount has typically been transferred to general fund, and then the rest of it goes to the capital fund. And it's to pay things like the pole replacements, the line replacements, the transformer upgrades, and all those things.
No. That's part of your whole electrical system, is replacing the poles and that sort of thing.
Right.
So
And
if we get our electrical bills in line, then where is that money coming from that's going to do these other things you were just talking about?
Because we don't have a big tax base.
The point I'm making is when you look at the expenses we have, the general government expenses are, you know, in our case, includes not just the administrative staff, it includes the brush pickup and maintenance, or the mowing of our street rights of way. There are a lot of expenses that are traditionally tied to, well, they're part of the general fund budget. And the revenue to cover the cost of those things should come as much as possible from the property taxes and local option sales taxes, which go into the general fund, versus those having to be paid by the enterprise funds. Then you use the enterprise funds, any margin on your enterprise funds, you use that for capital improvement projects, not general operating of the government. So I mean, when you say where do they come from, they still come from the enterprise funds, but you can lower the margin. Like right now, the way ECG generates their recommendation for our rates is they take all the costs, the variable and fixed costs, and then they ask us, how much should we put in this cell called transfer to general fund, and we give them a number, and it's been like $900,000, and they put it in there, and so then that is where they can generate the basis of their recommendation for our electric rate.
That all makes sense to a degree. But to me, a completer picture is, we got this money coming in, what do we do with it?
Mm-hmm.
What do we give back to the citizens
Mm-hmm.
of this city?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're giving them back as much as humanly possible, as in Asbury Park, as in maintaining as beautiful a city as we could possibly make, to me, it doesn't really matter whether it's coming from the general fund or whether it's coming from the enterprise fund, or, you know, which hip pockets it's coming off of. The citizens are still getting it back.
The difference is in terms of like a consumption-based tax versus a value-based tax. You've got a tax right now where it's tied to how much electricity someone uses. So we're now disincentivized as a city to encourage anyone to use less electricity. But it's in a lot of people's best interest to use less electricity because paying their electric bill can be a burden on their quality of life.
Nobody's encouraging me to use less electricity or more electricity. That's a decision I make.
What I'm saying is, right now, we've got a consumption-based tax. The more you use in electricity, the more you pay in tax. Okay? And that's putting it off on our renters. The renters are the ones that are paying for, all the services. The property owner bears no responsibility. And so we've got all these poor quality rental houses because they don't have any obligation to keep them up. The value, if we have higher property tax requirement on them, then they're going to want the value of those properties to be higher so they can get higher rent to then cover the cost of owning the property.
That is an ideal that is not followed. No matter what you do, there are going to be people that use up consumer property, whether they own it for rental property or they just own it. There's many, many people that buy a house and all they do is live there. They do not paint it.
Sure.
They do not repair the fascia. They do not put a roof on it. They don't absolutely have to. So that you're just kind of assuming an ideal world that just doesn't exist. And a lot of property owners do exactly that thing, and then they turn around and sell it to their brother, their sister, their son, and start that deductive process from their income taxes all over again. So that the depreciation. So to me, it seems a little bit semantic. It's a bit of a dance. And I think the best picture in my mind is what do the citizens of Oxford get with the money that's being paid in. They get a higher rent. If the more improved we do the city, the more value of people wanting to live here, that'll drive your rents up, and that'll improve your property. And,
But I think to me, the larger question is, then why don't we lower the electric rates and raise the property taxes? I mean, I don't understand. If you don't think it matters where it comes from, but, I mean, Sarah Leonard just sent me this email this week, and the average residential usage for 1,000 kilowatts, which is the base number I think they use, they have 1,000, 2,000, I think 3,000, but most people seem to use around 1,000, I believe. These are for 2021 numbers. It's the latest numbers they have, but she said that for the summer the summer 2021 numbers, Oxford was the 5th highest in the entire MEAG system. We're way above Georgia Power. I mean, they're way down below there, but we were the...
Georgia Power not running the government.
Well, we're way above Covington. We're way above the MEAG
We're the 5th
average.
out of 94, I think it's 94 communities. We're number 5. I mean, most
For
expensive.
electric rates in the ag.
Most expensive, yeah. And then we took away the PCA charge, and that dropped us to 11, but we're still 11. I mean, so that, that just seems like a very high number that we should be concerned about, that's all I'm saying.
Well, I think the other thing is if you're tying your revenue to something that's as volatile as electricity utility use, your revenue is going like this. If you tie it to something as stable as property tax collections, it is relatively flat.
Well, I've always been told.
Well, that's a good
you wanna
point,
have-
because I can pretty well assure you, and you know it as well as I do, this city can't live on property taxes.
No, and nobody's suggesting that it
Especially
does,
since one
but
of our
the
biggest-
general government expenses of taking care of streets and drainage and, mowing the grass and, those sorts of things should typically be an administration that isn't directly tied to managing the enterprise funds should be covered by the revenue that's generated in that account, which is local option sales tax, insurance premium tax, enterprise taxes, and property taxes.
Like I say, property taxes in a city as small as Oxford, we got about 500 some houses. And most of them are less than $100,000 houses.
Well, that's not true.
We have,
Maybe not now, because we're ready to.
we have
You
a,
got a lot.
we have these 1,200 square foot brick ranch houses on Bonnell Street, maybe not even 1,200 square feet. Small brick ranches on Bonnell Street selling for over $200,000.
Right now.
Right
Now, I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
little off now because everything went up by 30%, look like this year. At least I know mine did. Actually, we don't have enough property of higher value in this small city to actually make it off property taxes. I don't care how much you raise property taxes, you still gonna have to get revenue from somewhere else to operate this city.
And I'm concerned because the college continues to buy residential properties, which then I suppose become tax-free.
We're not suggesting that we're gonna run $5 million worth of a budget off of property taxes. We're saying the general fund needs to be as much of the revenue as possible for the general fund should, as much of the expenditures of the general fund should be paid by general fund revenue as possible.
So I'm going to the place that's asking, can we not charge the college tax on things they're not using for educational purposes?
We can take legal action against the county who has basically made a determination to put into tax exempt status any property owned by Emory University. While David Strickland agreed with me that the law, and Bill as well, the law states that it's the use of the property that dictates, not the ownership. So yes, there is property, but it's not insignificant, but it's not nothing, but it's not huge amounts. It's but what you can do is you can do in lieu of that, you can do payment in lieu of taxes. So they can agree that, yeah, we understand we're not really paying our fair share, and so we'll give the city a certain amount of payment to support services in lieu of paying any
So
taxes.
since
property taxes.
they're having an administrative transition right
Yeah,
now,
there's
I would
stuff-
really love to
yeah.
open dialogue about that, because the truth is that if the city looks crappy, then that's bad marketing for the college.
Mm-hmm.
And if the city looks good, then that's only positive when their families drive around and take a look. So it behooves them to work with us, make funds available, help us partner on projects that increase the overall value of the town. But I think that for me personally, just from my perspective, it seems like over the last 5 or 6 years, things became less felicitous, and I don't know. So it seemed like there was less, it became more us and you, even though they have Laura Gaffney now, who I love. But I think at an administrative level, it felt like there was more of a wall going up than we have had necessarily in the past. That's all.
Got a corporate attitude.
So I feel like, yeah, there is a little more corporate attitude, but you know, talking to some people, I don't want to get into it anymore.
Well, no, I mean, I think, and I don't want to act like this is an Emory problem. I mean, Emory University is being much more involved in the decision-making at Oxford College than they have in the past, and they've benefited from that, but it also comes at a cost. So they have more bureaucracy they have to deal with. This isn't about that. It's about.
No, it's not.
It's
I
about
digress.
the
I'm
fact
sorry.
that there is no justification of reducing the amount of revenue or holding steady the amount of revenue from property taxes when the cost of running the government of Oxford that should be covered by those taxes is going up.
I completely support this.
So
I'm
anyway,
sorry.
I just wanted to make, I really was just trying to, we had not talked about it, but we have to put things in the paper and say what the intent is, and obviously you all can vote and decide something different, but what's being put forward is to hold the millage rate at the current rate.
Yeah, I completely support that.
I don't have a problem with that, but I didn't think that's what we're talking about.
Okay, bottom line is, we're gonna take the same rate that we have.
Yep.
Not that I vote for it, but that's what's gonna happen.
We can't keep rolling back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The catch-up, that's what happened to us
We
some
we
years
spent
ago. And then
the
3 or 4
last-
years ago, we had to bite the bullet and go.
And start trying to catch up again, yeah.
In the last couple of years, we did a rollback because of what was going on, but we need to go and start the city moving forward.
But the purpose of the rollback is to keep you from keep going up on taxes. No, the increase in property value should put you just about where you were the year
It's
before.
intended to make the changes in assessment values, revenue neutral
Neutral, right.
in terms of tax, but the reality is, the cost of the government goes up, and so you need the revenue generated to go up as well. I mean, and you need, I mean, it's,
The real estate is not gonna stay at this high level.
What's odd to me is that everyone in this room, I think, would admit that whatever their house value is not what they would sell their house for. And if you did, you're foolish, because the value the county puts on your house is nowhere near the market value. Everyone knows that. And if it is, then you probably need to, you know,
complain.
talk to the tax commissioner, but you
That's
do
the
an
big thing
appeal.
about a state.
You can do an appeal and you're gonna win.
That's what they-
But I think the thing is though, that what I guess I have never understood being in this business for a quarter century is that when the house value goes up, it's because the community value is going up. And the city needs funds to create that community, to create the house value. So me as a homeowner wants to see house values rising, wants to see revenue from that going to a city because it's creating parks and sidewalks and events and community that makes my house worth more money. Because my house is my largest investment. So I guess I've never understood that, like, if my house goes up from $300,000 to $400,000, I know I'm gonna sell it for $500, you
But
know.
what if you're not gonna sell it?
Well,
All you do is pay taxes on it.
well, but
You
you're
still
sitting
want the
on a-
city to,
you're
you want the
sitting
city
on
to cut the grass in front of your house and
You're sitting on a-
keep the,
I
Police
for my
and-
house.
I mean,
Yeah, but you're not paving the road.
you want the road to be, we have, you guys have seen the bill we have to pay, you know, on road maintenance, okay? We have gotten behind, we need to kind of get our roads up to standard. People drive through town, see our roads, they go, you know, Oxford's not really kept up
The
right.
thing is, we know what we're gonna do, so no need us keep sitting there next 30 minutes talking about the same thing. We know what we're gonna do, so that's what's gonna happen. Let's go home, that's what we're gonna do.
We had not talked about it at all. I just wanted to raise it. We can talk about as little or as much as y'all want to. That's all we really need to cover tonight. We are going to move forward with the writing memo to move all our funds to United. We're going to have our next regular session on July 11th. We are going to, at our July 11th meeting, take a vote on Dave Huber as a Oxford Planning Commission, new Oxford Planning Commission member. We are on Friday, 2 days from now at 7 o'clock, going to have a special call meeting to vote on the gun resolution. And we are also going to be having hearings on the millage rate. So that's a recap. What's that?
We have to have 3 because it's a quote tax increase.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Always have trouble with that one.
We're done. Thanks, everybody.
Taxes.